Throughout the 2000s and 2010s, Spirit Airlines was a disruptive force in the US airline industry. Spirit is a so-called ultra-low-cost carrier. They don't pretend to have the best amenities or customer service. Their single-minded focus is to offer tickets at the cheapest price possible. Spirit brag that their tickets are often $150 cheaper than their competitors. For decades, Spirit has been consistently ranked as the worst airline in the United States. But millions of Americans were willing to deal with the poor customer service and frequent flight delays if it meant they could save hundreds of dollars on the ticket price. Despite offering the lowest prices, for a time Spirit was also the most profitable airline in America. At its peak in 2015, Spirit made $511 million of operating profit, which was 24% of its revenue. An operating profit margin above 20% is almost unheard of in the notoriously competitive airline industry. It looked as if Spirit had carved itself a very profitable niche, offering rock-bottom service for rock-bottom prices. But all good things must come to an end. In recent years, Spirit's profitability has collapsed. They've lost money every year since 2020. Facing mounting debts, Spirit was forced to file for bankruptcy protection in November of 2024. This has put the airline's future in serious doubt. In this video, we'll look at how Spirit became the most profitable airline in America, and how it all came crumbling down. Spirit is an ultra-low-cost carrier. Its competitive advantage is that it can fly planes very cheaply and pass on those savings to consumers. The main cost metric for airlines is cost per available seat mile. This is all the airline's operating costs divided by the number of miles flown multiplied by the number of seats in the plane. It represents how much it costs the airline to fly one passenger 1 mile. In the US, the big three legacy airlines are American, Delta, and United. For the remainder of the video, we'll refer to them collectively as the big three. In 2023, their cost per available seat mile was 18 cents, 19 cents, and 17 cents respectively. Spirit's cost per available seat mile was just 11 cents, way cheaper than any of the big three. So how is Spirit able to operate so cheaply? There are a few ways that Spirit keeps the costs down. Firstly, on most of its planes, Spirit does not include a first class or business class section. Its seats are also significantly smaller than other airlines. This allows them to have more seats per plane. Spirit is able to cram in approximately 20% more seats on any given airplane model compared to the big three. Remember how cost per available seat mile is calculated. If you increase the number of seats, you decrease the cost per seat. The big three airlines offer a wide range of flights, from short-haul domestic flights to long-haul international flights. Different routes require different planes. Small, fuel-efficient planes are suitable for short-haul flights, while long-haul flights require larger planes which have greater range but are often less fuel-efficient. When you operate many different types of airplanes, you need pilots, mechanics, etc. who are authorized to work on all of them. This necessitates massive armies of maintenance staff, as well as corporate administrative staff to manage everything. This is very costly. While maintaining a diverse fleet of aircraft is expensive, it is necessary if you want to be a global airline. The big three airlines can take you pretty much anywhere in the United States, as well as most major tourist destinations around the world. Spirit only operates one family of aircraft, the Airbus A320 family. From a logistical and maintenance perspective, this makes things far easier and cheaper to manage. Spirit focuses on connecting large population centers in the US with popular tourist destinations in Florida and the Caribbean. By only flying popular routes, Spirit is able to milk very high utilization from its fleet of aircraft. Running an airline is extremely complicated. You have hundreds of planes flying all over the world, with thousands of crew members on the ground and in the sky. You need to keep track of everything and make sure that everybody is in the right place at the right time. You often need to reroute and reschedule flights due to unpredictable weather events, and you need to deal with a constant stream of questions and complaints from passengers. Airlines employ armies of white-collar employees to manage everything that goes on behind the scenes. In order to cut costs, Spirit hired the bare minimum of corporate staff. To get a sense of just how stingy Spirit is, let's look at how former CEO Ben Baldanza ran their corporate headquarters. He removed 2/3 of the light bulbs to save on electricity costs. He also refused to hire janitorial staff, so every employee is responsible for cleaning up his or her own cubicle. This included Baldanza himself, who proudly showed off the vacuum cleaner he keeps in his office. Spirit is a multi-billion-dollar company. The amount of money they save by removing light bulbs is not material to their financial results, but it sends a clear message across the organization. Spirit is obsessed with cost. Every penny must be pinched. This penny pinching is not without consequences. Their skeleton staff is stretched thin, making it difficult to keep everything running smoothly. The Department of Transportation keeps track of the on-time performance of all US airlines. Spirit is one of the worst. In 2023, 83% of Delta's flights departed on time. 78% of United flights and 76% of American flights departed on time. Only 70% of Spirit flights departed on time. As we discussed earlier, Spirit is consistently ranked as one of the worst, if not the worst airline in the United States. Part of this is due to their poor on-time performance and understaffed customer service department. The second reason why many passengers hate Spirit is due to its business model. Spirit invented the concept of the bare fare. At least they took it to an extreme that had never been seen before in the industry. When you buy a ticket from Spirit, it only includes the bare minimum to get you from point A to point B. Everything else you need to pay for separately. You want to check your bag? That's going to cost you. You want a carry-on bag, the ability to choose your seat, or even a cup of water? That's all going to cost you extra. You even have to pay extra if you want your boarding pass printed out at the check-in desk. Because they generate so much revenue from ancillary sales, they can keep the price of the ticket itself very low. In the first half of 2024, the average price of a Spirit ticket was $46.48, but they made an average of $66.07 of revenue from baggage fees, food and drinks, etc. If nobody brought a checked bag or bought any food, the ticket revenue alone would not be nearly enough for Spirit to cover its operating costs. The very cheap ticket prices are a loss leader to attract customers. The real money comes from the ancillary sales. This extreme unbundling has caused many complaints. Customers are often surprised when they are asked to pay for things that they are used to getting for free on other airlines. Despite its bad reputation, millions of Americans nonetheless flock to Spirit for their low fares. Throughout the 2000s, Spirit's market share of domestic US air travel hovered around 1%. In the 2010s, their ultra-low-cost model started to gain traction. By 2023, their market share had increased to almost 3%. It looked like Spirit had found itself a profitable niche as America's lowest-cost airline. But this success would not last. Prior to 2020, Spirit was consistently profitable and growing very quickly. Obviously, the pandemic was a big disruption, causing a massive decline in revenue. Once the pandemic restrictions were lifted, air traffic recovered quickly. In 2022, Spirit reported record revenue of more than $5 billion. Despite the strong rebound in revenue, Spirit continued losing money. In the first half of 2024, Spirit's revenue declined by 8%, and its operating losses expanded. So what happened? Why has Spirit been struggling so much in recent years? Spirit isn't the only low-cost carrier to pop up over the past 20 years. There are others including Southwest, Frontier, and Allegiant. Frontier and Allegiant are very similar to Spirit. Southwest doesn't follow the same unbundling strategy, but they also operate a single family of aircraft, only on limited high-traffic routes. You can think of Southwest as a low-cost carrier, while Spirit, Frontier, and Allegiant are ultra-low-cost carriers. This chart shows the combined market share of the big three national airlines and the four discount carriers. Throughout the 2000s, the discounters took significant market share away from the big three. This is because they offered far cheaper ticket prices, which were attractive to budget-conscious consumers. Between 2008 and 2013, the market share of the big three increased dramatically. This was not the result of organic market share gains. It was instead the result of corporate consolidation. Delta merged with Northwest Airlines in 2008, United merged with Continental in 2010, and American merged with US Airways in 2013. Interestingly, around 2015, the combined market shares of the discounters stopped growing. They were no longer able to steal any more market share away from the big three. Since the early 2000s, the big three airlines have been watching the discounters take away their market share. At first, this seemed like a difficult problem to solve. The big three airlines need to spend heavily on customer support, maintaining a diverse fleet of airplanes, etc. This is necessary to maintain their brand image and keep their premium customers happy. This means they have structurally higher operating costs compared to the discounters. Around the mid-2010s, the big three airlines finally figured out a strategy to compete with the discounters. They started selling a new class of ticket called Basic Economy. Basic Economy tickets get you a seat in the main cabin of the aircraft, the same seats that regular economy passengers sit in. There are a few downsides to Basic Economy. You typically don't earn rewards points, your seat assignment is random, and you are the last to board. Delta and American allow Basic Economy flyers to bring one carry-on bag for free, while United charges an extra $35. The main downside of Basic Economy is a random seat assignment. The people who buy regular economy tickets choose their seats first. The Basic Economy passengers get what's left over, so you're likely to get an undesirable seat such as a middle seat in the back of the plane. If you're traveling with your family in Basic Economy, it is very unlikely that you'll be seated together because they allocate each person to a random seat. Because you board last, there is a high probability that the overhead compartments will already be full, so you may need to gate check your carry-on bag. This is free of charge, but is an inconvenience. In some ways, flying basic economy on the big three airlines is a superior experience compared to the ultra-low-cost carriers like Spirit. Because the larger airlines have more flights, if your flight is delayed and you miss your layover, they can typically put you on another flight within a few hours. Given that Spirit is a smaller airline with fewer flights, you might have to wait much longer to get onto the next flight. The customer service in general is better with the big three, even if you're flying basic economy. Historically, discounters like Spirit have competed on price alone. With the introduction of basic economy, Spirit has lost its sole competitive advantage. For example, let's say you want to fly from New York to Chicago in mid-December. The cheapest option is Spirit, which costs $49. Delta is double the price at $99. But the Delta ticket comes with a free carry-on bag, the Spirit ticket does not. The vast majority of travelers need at least a carry-on bag. Spirit has 4 different ticket options: Go, Go Savvy, Go Comfy, and Go Big. Go is the cheapest and does not include a carry-on bag. Go Savvy allows you to bring either a carry-on bag or a checked bag. For this New York to Chicago flight, the cheapest Go Savvy option is $99. If you buy the basic Go ticket, you can pay $50 extra for a checked bag. You cannot pay for a carry-on bag. The only way to bring a carry-on bag is to upgrade to Go Savvy for $99. This happens to be the exact same price as a Delta Basic Economy, which also includes a free carry-on bag. So if you want to bring a carry-on bag, which the vast majority of people do, you don't even save any money by flying on Spirit. And for the reasons we discussed earlier, you'll probably have a better experience on one of the big three airlines, so there's really no reason to use Spirit anymore. If you've been paying attention throughout this video, you might notice an apparent contradiction. As we discussed previously, Spirit's operating costs are substantially lower than the big three. In 2023, Spirit spent 11 cents per available seat mile to operate its planes. Delta spent 19 cents per available seat mile. This doesn't seem to make sense. If it costs Delta 80% more to run its flights, how can they possibly offer basic economy tickets that are price competitive with Spirit? In 2023, Delta generated $58 billion of revenue. Of this, 75% came from ticket sales. $6.5 billion, or roughly 11%, came from their loyalty program, and 14% came from all other sources. This includes cargo. Sometimes Delta packs cargo onto its planes when there is extra space. The other segment also includes checked baggage fees and onboard sales of alcohol, etc. Finally, Delta owns its own oil refinery that makes jet fuel both for its own use and to sell to third parties. The refinery's third-party sales are recorded within the other segment. The loyalty program is hugely important to Delta. It provides billions of dollars of revenue every year at very high profit margins. If you go on a flight with one of the big three airlines, they will almost certainly try to convince you to apply for their co-branded credit card. When you spend money with a co-branded credit card, you earn miles which you can redeem to pay for flights. For example, let's say you want to book a round trip on Delta from New York City to Miami in May of 2025. This will cost you 9,500 miles plus a $12 booking fee. That same flight would cost you $127. So 9,500 miles is worth approximately $115. Each mile is worth about 1.2 cents. However, a significant portion of miles are never spent because people just forget about them. No airline discloses how many miles go unspent, but the proportion is believed to be significant. The consulting firm McKinsey & Company estimates that 15 to 30% of airline miles are never used. So while the miles are worth 1.2 cents each if they are redeemed, we can probably round down the expected value to 1 cent, accounting for the ones that never get used. In the case of Delta, they partner with American Express for their credit cards. American Express pays Delta for the Sky Miles. When consumers pay for stuff with a credit card, American Express gives them Sky Miles as a reward. American Express generates revenue from fees charged to merchants, as well as interest from customers who carry a balance on their card. From the perspective of American Express, purchasing Sky Miles is a marketing expense that helps them acquire customers. The customers redeem the miles to pay for Delta flights. After accounting for the 15 to 30% of miles that never get used, each Sky Mile costs Delta about 1 cent. Delta does not disclose how much it charges American Express for the miles, but it is believed to be at a significant markup. Maybe they sell each mile for 2 cents. The loyalty programs are believed to be the most profitable segments for all the big three airlines. In addition to American Express, Delta also sells Sky Miles to hundreds of retailers. For example, you can earn Sky Miles when you shop at Starbucks. This is a marketing expense for Starbucks. Starbucks earns very high contribution margins on the coffee it sells. If they can pay a 3 or 4% fee to attract Delta flyers to their stores, that's well worth the cost. Given the proven profitability of loyalty programs, why don't the deep discounters like Spirit do the same thing? Well, they've tried, but not with very great success. Spirit has its own credit card and loyalty program that functions similarly to Delta's. In 2023, Spirit earned $93 million from its credit card and loyalty programs. This equates to less than 2% of its total revenue. This is peanuts compared to the 11% of revenue that Delta generates from its loyalty program. There are a couple of factors holding back Spirit's loyalty program. Firstly, their customers are focused primarily on cost. Every time they fly, they look for whichever airline is the cheapest, which may or may not be Spirit. If you don't even know if you'll fly Spirit again, the idea of accumulating points is not so attractive. One of the reasons the Big Three's loyalty programs are so lucrative is because of their high-value customers, the ones who fly first in business class. These people are wealthy and tend to spend more money in general. They thus punch well above their weight in terms of how many miles they earn. Spirit targets a lower income demographic. Many of Spirit's customers may not even have a high enough credit score to qualify for the credit card. Now that we understand the business models of Spirit and the Big Three, let's compare their unit economics. Both Spirit and Delta fly the Airbus A321neo, thus making comparisons easier. Let's compare the seat maps. The Spirit flight map looks thicker, but that's just because the diagrams are not drawn to scale. They are the same aircraft with the same dimensions. Spirit separates the plane into two sections. In the first two rows, they have 4 big seats each. Behind that, they have 227 regular seats for 235 in total. Delta split up into 3 sections: First Class, Comfort Plus, and Main Cabin. They have 20 first class seats, 42 Comfort Plus seats, and 132 seats in the main cabin. The main cabin includes both economy and basic economy customers. That's 194 seats in total. First Class and Comfort Plus take up far more space per seat. Because of the larger seats, the Delta flight holds 17% fewer passengers than the Spirit flight. Remember that this is the exact same airplane, the Airbus A321neo. Despite having fewer passengers, Delta actually makes more revenue per flight. Spirit generates 9.6 cents of total revenue per available seat mile. This includes all sources of revenue: ticket fares, checked bag fees, onboard purchases, and loyalty programs. Let's assume a 1,000-mile trip. Spirit generates $22,630 of revenue. Delta has 17% fewer passengers, but its revenue per available seat mile is more than double that of Spirit. Delta generates $41,400 per flight. Just looking at the headline number, it's easy to see why Delta is so much more profitable than Spirit. Now let's break down how Delta is able to generate so much revenue per flight. Based on Delta's reported cost per available seat mile, the total operating cost for a 1,000-mile flight on an A321neo is approximately $37,460. So Delta makes a profit of a little under $4,000 per flight. Delta doesn't disclose the average price for each type of ticket, but we can see that in general, economy is about 40% more expensive than basic economy. Comfort Plus is about 70% more expensive than economy. First Class is about 50% more expensive than Comfort Plus. 75% of total revenue comes from ticket sales. Based on the number of seats of each class and their relative prices, we can estimate the average price for each class of ticket. Let's assume that half of the main cabin tickets are economy and half are basic economy. To get the numbers to add up, the basic economy tickets need to be $95 each, regular economy is $135, Comfort Plus is $225, and First Class is $340. Despite being less than 1/3 of tickets sold, the premium customers contribute more than half of ticket revenue. In fact, this understates the importance of premium customers, as the majority of loyalty program revenue can likely be attributed to premium customers. For the sake of argument, let's see what would happen if Delta only sold basic economy tickets. If you rearrange the seat plan, you can have at most 40 rows of 6 seats each, for 240 seats in total. At $95 per ticket, that's $22,800 of ticket revenue. Delta makes approximately $10,000 of non-ticket revenue per flight. That brings us to $32,800 of total revenue, which is less than the cost to operate the flight. In reality, the situation would probably be even worse, because if you get rid of your first-class customers, the loyalty program won't be nearly as profitable. The point of this hypothetical exercise is to show that basic economy on its own is not profitable. If basic economy is not profitable, why have it at all? In an ideal world, the entire airplane would have only first-class seats. The problem is, there aren't that many people who can afford a first-class ticket, so you wouldn't be able to fill up the plane. For any given route, there are a limited number of premium customers. To maintain your pricing, you can't have any more than 20 first-class seats. Any more and you would either need to reduce the ticket price or some of the seats will go empty. The same for Comfort Plus and regular economy. To maintain high prices and high occupancy, you can't have too many premium seats available. After first class, comfort plus, and economy, you still have a quarter of the plane that's empty. That's where basic economy comes into play. Basic economy is inferior in terms of the user experience. Thus, you don't have to worry about higher tier customers trading down. The cost of operating the flight is pretty much fixed. Whether you're at 70% capacity or 100% capacity, the cost is almost the same. Having basic economy customers is better than nothing. Basic economy on its own is not profitable, but we have to view it in the broader context. Basic economy is a way for Delta to fill up the plane without compromising the exclusivity of the higher tiers. In a way, the premium passengers are subsidizing the basic economy passengers. Without the premium ticket revenue, Delta would not be profitable. There's also a less tangible benefit to Delta. When you're young and not making much money, you might fly basic economy. If you enjoy the experience, you might continue flying on Delta in the future. 10 years later, you've advanced in your career and now you can afford regular economy or even first class. Basic economy is a way for Delta to start building brand loyalty with members of the younger generation, some of whom will eventually become premium customers. Prior to the pandemic, Spirit's total revenue per available seat mile was well above its cost. After the pandemic, Spirit's operating costs increased significantly. This was due to an increase in the price of jet fuel, as well as a tight labor market, which forced Spirit to increase wages for its employees. These inflationary pressures were not unique to Spirit, they impacted the entire industry. Spirit has not been able to offset the higher costs by raising ticket prices, so they are now losing money. One of the most important metrics for airlines is the load factor. This measures how many seats in the airplane are full on an average flight. In the past, Spirit was able to fill approximately 85% of its seats. As of the first half of 2024, the load factor decreased to 82%. While a few percentage points might not sound like a lot, it shows that Spirit is having trouble filling its seats. Given that this is the case, they do not have the latitude to significantly raise ticket prices. It is very difficult for Spirit to compete against the big three airlines, who are effectively subsidizing their basic economy offerings. The ultra-low-cost business model is no longer viable. In 2023, Spirit faced another problem that it couldn't have predicted. Spirit operates dozens of A321neo aircraft. These are manufactured by the French aerospace giant Airbus, but the engines are made by the American company Pratt & Whitney. In the summer of 2023, they realized that defects in the powdered metal used to manufacture certain engine parts could cause problems. In September, they notified airlines that some A321neo planes needed to be grounded for accelerated maintenance. As of December 2023, 12 of Spirit's aircraft were grounded. Throughout 2024, even more aircraft needed to be grounded, bringing the total up to 40. This is almost 20% of Spirit's entire fleet. Pratt & Whitney has agreed to pay between $150 and $200 million in compensation to Spirit. These aircraft groundings were certainly a negative development, but to be clear, Spirit was already losing money before this. Given the deterioration of its competitive position, Spirit's last resort was to sell itself. In the summer of 2022, they agreed to be acquired by JetBlue for $3.8 billion. JetBlue has about $10 billion of annual revenue, making them much bigger than Spirit, but smaller than the big three. Their routes are mostly concentrated on the east coast of the United States. JetBlue is not a discounter. They cater to premium customers with first-class seats. You can think of JetBlue as a smaller version of the big three airlines. Given that JetBlue follows a completely different business strategy, why did they want to acquire Spirit? JetBlue was primarily interested in Spirit's fleet of 200 aircraft. While many of these aircraft were leased, by acquiring Spirit, JetBlue would also acquire the leases. Spirit exclusively flies the Airbus A320 family of aircraft. JetBlue flies the same family of aircraft as well. It would be relatively easy for JetBlue to integrate Spirit's planes into its existing maintenance and logistics systems. Thanks to Boeing's well-publicized production issues, there is currently an industry-wide shortage of airplanes. While Spirit and JetBlue primarily fly Airbus, they are impacted nonetheless. Due to Boeing's production challenges, many other airlines that primarily fly Boeing have put in orders with Airbus. Airbus now has a massive backlog of orders that will take many years to fulfill. JetBlue has ambitions to grow. Their ability to expand is constrained by a lack of airplanes. That's why they wanted Spirit and its 200 planes. In March of 2023, the Department of Justice sued to block the merger, saying it would be anti-competitive. The government argued that ultra-low-cost carriers like Spirit are vital to maintaining competition. If JetBlue acquires Spirit, they'll remodel the airplanes to have large first-class sections. This will decrease the number of main cabin seats available, thereby putting upward pressure on prices. It is almost certainly true that ultra-low-cost carriers have added significant competition to the industry. Had it not been for the likes of Spirit and other deep discounters, the big three airlines would probably have never introduced basic economy. After a protracted legal battle, a judge ultimately sided with the government and blocked the merger. This was a tragedy for Spirit's shareholders. JetBlue offered to pay them $33.50 per share. Throughout the legal process, Spirit's financial performance continued to deteriorate. When the merger was blocked in January of 2024, Spirit's share price immediately tanked to $6. 10 months later, Spirit filed for bankruptcy protection. In hindsight, the government's decision to block the merger may have been a mistake. They wanted Spirit to remain as an independent entity. Now that Spirit has gone bankrupt, they may not exist for much longer. As of the time of recording this video, Spirit continues to operate as it attempts to restructure its debts, but they are quickly running out of cash. Given the structural problems of their business model, it's hard to see how the company can be resurrected from bankruptcy. The most likely scenario is that its assets, most notably its airplanes and leases, will be liquidated by the bankruptcy court. The liquidation auction may give JetBlue another opportunity to get its hands on Spirit's airplanes. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video. What do you think about Spirit? Should the government have allowed them to be acquired by JetBlue? Let us know in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for watching and we'll see you in the next one. Wall Street Millennial, signing out.